So this is my step-by-step tutorial on how I make my wigs using beautiful silky Peerless bundles and a closure. I'm going to be dyeing the hair a boom raspberry colour, and this is everything that I use when I make my wigs. So get your notebooks out, ladies, and let's get started. So the first step is to get the powdered bleach. I always get rapid blue. I don't know what the difference is, but it seems to work for me. And the cream peroxide, always get 9%, and mix it together. First of all, I'm going to be bleaching the knots on the closure. So I want the consistency of the bleach to be quite thick so it doesn't run through the lace and go on the hair on the other side. So it's kind of trial and error at this point. I always add more of the powdered bleach than the peroxide. It just seems to make it more of a thicker consistency, which is what I'm looking for. So once you mix and mix and mix and mix, and you find yourself getting the consistency that you want for the closure, lumpy and gooey is always the way forward. Now you can start to apply the bleach to the closure. I personally make sure the whole of the lace of the closure is covered in a nice even coverage of bleach. I also do it just above the hairline, just so that if I choose to cut the lace a bit higher, then it's still all the same color. It just works very well for me, so I recommend that you do the same. It's a very tricky business, so take your time, ladies. Make sure that you get it nice and even, because you don't want any patchy parts where you haven't bleached the knots and the knots are just visible if you decide to do a parting there. So once I've left the bleach and the closure for about 35 to 40 minutes, I wash it off with some lukewarm water. I always add a bit of shampoo to the closure just to make sure that the bleach is completely off so it can't over process. So now it's time to bleach those beautiful Peerless bundles. I basically add more cream peroxide to the bleach mix that I made for the closure. I need this consistency to be a bit more thinner, so it's easier to apply onto the bundles. Due to the fact that I was filming this for you guys and I wanted you to be able to see what I was doing, I used a dye brush to apply the bleach. But in reality, when you lot are doing this at home, just put your hand in the bleach with a glove on and just make sure that those bundles have an even coverage everywhere. So once I've finished bleaching all the bundles, I add foil on top of them just to speed up the bleaching process. After I've left the bundles to develop for 35 to 40 minutes, I start to wash the bleach out of the hair. So once I've washed the bleach out of the bundles, I then add L'Oreal Paris Silver Shampoo, which is basically a shampoo toner, which will help take any of those brassy tones out of the blonde hair. Leave it in the hair for 5 minutes and then wash it out. So I've decided to dye the bundles using Schwarzkopf. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but if it's not, apologies. Raspberry Rebel semi-permanent hair dye. Decided to go for this colour because I just feel like it's going to be a good summer winter colour, and I wanted a wig that I could use in both seasons. So let's be real, it's a striking colour and it will definitely be turning a few heads. Because the hair dye that I used was a semi-permanent one, I left it on the hair for about an hour and then I washed it off using lukewarm water. I added conditioner to the hair just to give it that soft texture that I love. I always use John Frieda Frizz Ease because it is actually amazing. And then I just combed out the hair and then washed it again. After I finish washing the bundles, I get started on the wig. I always use this mesh cap whenever I make my wigs. It just lets your hair breathe underneath. Then I'll place the closure where I want it on the wig, and then I'll use T-pins to pin it down into place so it's easier when I'm sewing. I know exactly where I should sew around. Whenever you finish sewing, always make sure that you do a very tight knot, just because the worst thing ever would be sewing everything and then your thread come out later on. So it's really good to make sure everything's secure. So once I've done that, I'm just going to put the T-pins in the weft just so that I know exactly what line to follow, and then you just basically take the T-pins out as you go along, and that way you've got lovely straight lines throughout the whole wig. So the amount of labour that goes into a wig, I always make sure it's gonna last, so I sew very tightly because that way there's no gaps. I know this wig is gonna last me a long time. So once your wig is completed, take it off your wig head and turn it inside out. Cut carefully around your sewing line so your closure will now be visible. I normally use frontals. This would be the first closure that I've ever plucked, but it's pretty much the same method when you're plucking. You should always spray it with water first, just because damper hair is easier to pluck. I know everyone says it, but it's actually the truth. And then I'll just part off a bit of the front of the hair, and with me, I kind of don't really like baby hairs. I like the hairline to look natural, so I find that if I take a little bit from the front and then start plucking, and then in the end brush it back with the hair, it just gives it that natural hairline. And if you're wondering what the hell happened to my nails, 2 of them broke while making the wig, and I didn't want to get a fresh pair because I didn't want them to die. It was a bit risky, but yeah, they never look like this normally. I'm so sorry. So once I'm happy with the plucking, I will then brush the hair back the way I want it to be styled, and then I will add a bit of gel to the front of it. I'll put my hot curler on top of the hairline, just where the gel is, just to keep it in place. Then I'll put a head tie over the wig head and leave it overnight, and then in the morning my wig will be ready to wear. And this, ladies, is the end result. I'm really happy with it. The hair is beautiful, like it is so soft. So I'm definitely going to do a hair review on Peerless hair. And if anybody wants to inquire about any wigs, please feel free to DM me on my Instagram. And take care. Thank you for watching.
Netflix with a cookie dough, you don't want to spend your one night going. And that's all it takes to get inside your feelings. Up in the right